everybody, it's Nix here from London. Today's video is brought to you by Albus Oil. Well, not really, but I've been a bit under the weather. I've had a bit of a nasty cold and it's gone a bit chesty as well, but I'm feeling better. So I thought I would do this video and just take it nice and easy. I've got quite a few decks to go through because today I'm going to run through all the decks I'm going to be using in the next astrological month of Taurus. So let's have a look in my book as to what we have for Taurus. So Taurus's overall ruler is Venus, the goddess of love. So we have all that beautiful beauty and love. I've got my little corresponding crystal there. And so she's going to be across all of Taurus. However, Taurus is a fixed earth sign. So that means it's the most earthy of the signs, the most mundane, the most, perhaps the most manifesting in a way, which we do see in the natural world, don't we? We see all the flowers that are going to be coming out. Primroses there, they're a bit of a correspondence with Venus. The lovely healing herbs that start getting all juicy and lovely at this time of year. Got a bit of mint there. And her love is everywhere, isn't it? Things are coming through, you know, they've nested, things are hatching more and more. Oh, look, there's a little, you see that? There's a little creature. I think it may have hopped off the mint. Things are all moving and full of life and perhaps a bit less fighting, because as well as Venus being overall ruler, she was the decan ruler in the last third of Aries, which was under Mars, of course. But now that we're in Venus's realm, that's quite detrimental to Mars in Taurus. So we have less of that Martian energy going on, and perhaps a little bit of a relief at this point. We also have the moon being exalted in Taurus, and the moon is all about intuition and mystery, and it has its light sometimes, but it can be a bit of a veiled light, can be a bit opaque. It's in the subconscious. It's all about intuition. We're not sure. Intuition comes to us, but where from? You know, it's all a bit of a mystery. So we have that kind of veiled side of things that we can't quite see, but that comes through to us anyway, and perhaps also a little bit changeable. And for this, just in time for my video, which has slightly prompted and encouraged me to do it, this lovely package has arrived from Make Playing Cards, and I know what it is, and it is going to be used now in my final decan of Taurus. I'm going to just get some cards out here because this is a tarot tube after all. I've put some of the cards that we have for Taurus at the top of this. This is the Taschen, the pack of cards that comes with the Taschen box. A huge book and pack. I was quite surprised how big it was actually, but I've just taken the deck out here. Beautiful deck here. We have the Taurus is generally considered to be the Hierophant, and if you look here on these Y shapes, that's like the bull's horns, but the horns of the Hierophant are uniting the division, and all are able to travel through the wisdom of the Hierophant. And then I've also got out the Empress here because I think of her as being Venus in this case, and all that lovely abundance we have. And then because it is a fixed earth sign and very worldly, we've got the World. And Taurus I also think of as being very strong. The bull is a strength, although that's, you know, officially a sort of Lion, Leo card, I think we also have the influence of strength coming through. A type of strength, a loving strength, perhaps rather than a physical strength. And then, of course, the moon that's exalted, that mystery, that subconscious, that intuition. And then we get to our decan cards. We start off with Mercury. Mercury is our decan ruler. Let's see if we can find a little crystal in here. Ooh. What can we have for Mercury? I think we have this little sparkly thing here. I'll put the moon there. Oh, might as well put the world out there while we're at it. So that's our first flavour. But as I've said before, the decan rulers, they give a flavour, but we have this overall energy, and then a flavouring which gives us a specific kind of manifestation. Although, you know, if you remember things like the butterfly effect, that was a very popular pop science book a while ago, small changes can kind of, in a way, make big differences, can't they? So that little spice can make quite a difference. And in this case, when we move on to the next ruler, which is also the moon, which as well as being exalted, we have a different flavour here. And then finally, in the third decan, we move on to this, where we have our boundary setter. We have Saturn. Saturn of time, Saturn of boundaries. And I think we can see there that if we look at these, the Golden Dawn titles for these, I think we have the, what's it called, material problems or something, isn't it? Let me just, honestly, my brain today, I'm going to look. Fortunately, keep everything written in here for bear of little memory. Where's my pentacles? We have the Lord of Material Trouble. That's it, trouble. And then we move on to material success, which is being shared here. And then we have success unfulfilled. So we'll go into it a little bit more detail when I show which decks I've chosen. But obviously this is about the lack of material attributes, the lack of material sustenance. And here we have a sharing manifested. And then here we need patience, Saturn, time. So let's move on and have a look at the decks that I've chosen for each of these. We are now in the realm of Mercury in Taurus. And to me, this decan's energy is very much to do with the starving artist. We have the love, but we don't always have the means. And for that reason, I've chosen my first of 3 decks, the William Blake Tarot of the Creative Imagination. Now, William Blake was an 18th century mystic, visionary, poet and artist, and he did suffer materially for his art. There's a sort of anecdote of his wife at one point who was, you know, very encouraging and supportive of him, but at one point when they didn't really have enough money, she would put empty plates on the table as a reminder to him that, you know, they needed to eat basically, and he needed to find a way to bring some money in. And of course, William Blake, for those who don't know, he is, you might be more familiar with this book, The Doors of Perception, which is all about opening up the mind through, Aldous Huxley had an experience with a Mexican drug, mescaline, and he suddenly had visions and realised that there was more to the world than our mind allows us to see. And he wrote this book, and it's called The Doors of Perception. And The Doors of Perception is also, I believe, where the band The Doors got their name from. But that phrase, The Doors of Perception, actually came from William Blake. And among his visions, he would write things about having dinner with the prophets Isaiah and Ezekiel. Here in this little book, Every Man's Library, Pocket Poetry, he talks about, he calls it a memorable fancy. The prophets Isaiah and Ezekiel dined with me, and I asked them how they dared so roundly to assert that God spoke to them, and whether they did not think at the time that they would be misunderstood and so be cause of imposition. Anyway, he goes through all this conversation he has. At one point, he talks then at the end, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. For man has closed himself up till he sees all things through narrow chinks of his cavern. And he has this whole idea of vision being potentially fourfold. And he talks about the genius of people like Newton, who was a scientific genius, but he calls that, I think, twofold vision. And he believes that the true visionary has this fourfold vision and is able to see not just the mundane correspondences of the world, but beyond that. And this deck by Ed Burren, I bought this initially, I bought a copy of this for my father because my dad is a very big William Blake fan. He has lots of sort of reproductions of William Blake prints on the wall. He has read a lot about William Blake. I've got a lot of books on William Blake, but I found this tarot on William Blake and I thought that would be perfect present. And he was never a collector. He only ever had 1 or 2 decks, but this is now his favourite deck. So I also bought a copy for myself, and this is the 3rd edition, which I believe is a lot of people consider to be the best one to go for because the colours are that bit stronger. So let's have a look through. I haven't actually really worked much with this. I've done a couple of card pulls, but I'm choosing this for the decan, the first decan. So I'll be doing card pulls from this every day through that. And there we have. It's all based on the art of William Blake and some of the phrases. Innocence and the crocodile. There is a little bit of nudity in here, so there may be some cards I sort of ruffle through rather quickly. Look at that. Mystery. Nature. Reason. Now let's see what he says about reason, because this is like the grand architect of the great work, and some of his art also draws a comparison with Newton. In fact, I've got some by my desk. I can show you. There's his one of Isaac Newton, who is shown at the bottom of the seabed drawing his geometries there, but to me it's like he's ignoring the actual beauty of the world in terms of focusing very clearly on these sort of scientific diagrams, which of course, you know, it brings us physics, it brings us technology, it brings us certain mechanical understandings, which then, of course, Newtonian physics now doesn't fit really with quantum physics, but it also doesn't really explain just the sheer beauty of experience. Yeah, so I've got the original of this one here too. See, that's the William Blake. What's he call it? The Ancient of Days. That one was done in 1827, so a little bit into the 19th century. Anyway, I was going to look up reason, wasn't I? Let's have a look. Nature. Pure rationalism, in effect, using your head to get through a situation, a time to define or obey the rules, yielding to or being the boss or authority figure. Patriarchal or traditional approaches favoured, fathering issues, watch for ironies, since the emperor has no clothes. That's very appropriate. So, yeah, that's his version of the emperor, or Ed Burren's version. William Blake didn't do tarot, as far as I know, so this is all someone interpreting it. Religion for the Hierophant, which is our ruler in Taurus, or our correspondence for Taurus. Knowledge for the Lovers. Well, yeah, the tree of knowledge. Experience. Chariot. Assessment. So he has got justice equivalent in the position 8, which I do like justice in there. I think you learn your ethics before you gain your strength and imagination. This now, the creative imagination is kind of what Blake almost saw as the Messiah, or the God that, you know, the God within man. And he talks that there's another poem where he talks about pity having a human face, and that when we pity others, as this card engenders pity, well, it should do if we've got empathy within us, that he considered that a sort of manifestation of the divine. We care, you know, we want to help those people, don't we? And if we do, that's a sign of divinity. And in fact, he asked his wife when they were going to get married, what he wanted to know most of all was not if she loved him, because by love, people can mean so many different things, can't they? It can sometimes almost mean I want to own you. He asked her, do you pity me? And she said yes. And that is what made him decide that their match was the correct one, a match made in heaven, because he felt that if one pities another, then you have this deep sympathy for them that is really a divine form of love. And I think we can perhaps see that with Venus's influence, that this in the world, in the very fixed earth, mundane requirements of Taurus, that this is about having love for our fellow human beings and caring about their suffering and wanting to do something about it, that, you know, thinking that isn't right. That isn't right, that they should be barefoot in the snow. So let's continue on through some of these cards. I better not take too long. Honestly, I get very distracted. Perhaps I should get forgiveness. Error. The devil is error. There's the moon. There's something hidden there, isn't there? Hidden trickery, actually, for this happy unit. The dark side. Liberty. And if anyone knows, see that, you'll recognise that picture. If you know the Greenwood Tarot, because the Fool of the Greenwood Tarot is very much based on this figure, this open figure that Blake painted. The potential of man, the infinite potential of man. So then we get into effectively the names that correspond to the pentacles. So material trouble, we have hardship there. the 5 of painting. He's kind of being shunned. And then when we move on to the 6 for this, we have assistance, the help coming. And then patience, which is all about Saturn and time and needing to wait for things. Anyway, this is a beautiful deck. And I have written in my little green book, such that I love it. I have written in here under my cards the names. So, and you can start to see how it matches with the RWS system and others, how they take that same kind of concept, that same energy, and slightly move it round a little bit. So yeah, for example, 9 of Wands, the Lord of Great Strength, and he has 9 of poetry, powers. Oops. So that's that one. I'd like to look at all of them, but we probably don't have time to do the entire deck. Maybe I'll do a walkthrough of that when I've worked with it a little bit more, and a bit more of a deep dive. Oops. Yeah, lovely little saying there. Time is the mercy of eternity. Without time's swiftness, which is the swiftest of all things, all were eternal to torment. And it says here, William Blake is universally acknowledged as an extraordinary artist, poet and visionary thinker, considered hard to understand due to his complex mythologies. But now his central thesis that creativity is divine can be readily comprehended and employed as never before through the William Blake Tarot of the creative imagination. In this pocket gallery, Blake's ideas and images become symbolic tools for answering imaginative, spiritual and personal questions. Unlike textbooks and critical studies, this tarot deck presents Blake's astounding ideas and images in a manner that is approachable and entertaining. It is, but I do think if you want to know more about Blake, that you should, if you get one book, William Blake, The Completed Illuminated Books, because his words were very much designed to sit alongside images. He wrote these books and they're all done by hand in this little handwriting. I almost wonder whether he was short-sighted because he did tiny little things, although I have also read it's because it was too expensive to do too much largeness on paper. So he made these beautiful books, and his artwork is sort of designed to go alongside. There's Jerusalem chapter 2, his work. Oh, getting to and reading it there. Quite dense. I mean, you can see why people also need the typed text. And you can see he was doing Hebrew letters there. So, you know, it was around. And that was in the 18th, 19th century. See how tiny some of these are. I went to an exhibition on Blake and saw some of these originals, and they're just, yeah, I mean, it's mesmerising. You probably know that one, Tiger, 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 burning bright in the forest of the night. Also, anyone who's British will know the song Jerusalem, and did those feet in ancient times walk upon England's pastures green. Those are all Blake, that's Blake's lyrics. So, next deck, anyway, what have we got? Ah, yes. I have got, because of the connection to Bulls and Taurus and Mercury being in Taurus, I have got my beloved Tarot of the Master, which is so beautiful. And I've already done a whole video on this, so I'm not going to spend too much time. But I'll just explain my thinking, which is we do clearly have Mercurial Hermes elements in this deck. Hermes and Thoth or Tote, being the same god, really. And we also have Taurus, because this deck was made in Turin, which is related, and we have the little lover impaled on the horn of the bull there. So that, you know, that is Venus and Taurus and Mercury all combined in this very beautiful deck. So that is Tarot of the Masters, which is also for that decan. Putting it back in my little felt pouch. And then I did think, being Venus, I needed some female energy. So I've also got Margaret Peterson, which is a deck I tend to just do single card pulls from. I have not really worked with it a lot. And I just wanted something where if I just want to do a little bit of meditative looking, that I've got something to do that with as well. Beautiful, beautiful Margaret Peterson. And I think these are all about artists, because as I said, I do think that it's very appropriate to the sort of the starving artists, by which I mean they weren't necessarily all literally starving, but they were those who put their art before financial well-being, I think, in some ways. That art for the love of art was very much the case. I mean, this took her years to make. No one does that to make big bucks, do they? And I do think that Tarot of the Master was also very much a labour of love. And William Blake, well, he did impoverish himself for art, for his visions, and for his whole religious scheme that he came up with. So that's my last one for that particular decan. Now, I have talked a lot about correspondences, and if correspondences are something you're interested in, which I think anyone who does tarot or magic or anything, you know, it all comes down to correspondences. Correspondences are like metaphors. They're like this thing also corresponds to this thing, and it's how we build a bigger and bigger map of meaning. And to me, whenever we learn a new pattern, what we're really doing is finding ourselves more correspondences. You know, when we do the decans, we're finding that this corresponds to this card, and this book is absolutely brilliant on correspondences. It's a Llewellyn. It's kind of like a correspondence Bible, effectively. It's called Comprehensive Resource for Pagans and Wiccans. Anybody can use it, really. And I think, given that a lot of people that do create decks work with correspondences, to be able to look up in this animals, plants, crystals, planets, stories, for example, and let's just have a look. Rose corresponds with Venus, and it's also under some zodiac signs, including Taurus. And we have various chakras. I mean, Venus is very much the heart chakra. It's all in here. So yeah, what does it say on the back here? Mind, body and spirit magic studies. The power of correspondences awaits you. Llewellyn's complete book of correspondences is a clear, straightforward companion for pagan and Wiccan ritual and spell work. Entries are cross-referenced, indexed and organised by categories and subcategories, making it easy to find what you need. This comprehensive reference provides a fascinating look at why correspondences are more than just lists of objects to focus intent on. They are fundamental to how we think, and that is it. That, to me, everything comes down to correspondences. When we use correspondences, we weave together our ideas, beliefs and energy, creating deeper meaning in our rituals and spell work as we unite our individuality with a larger purpose. So, yeah, what does it say here? It has plants, minerals, animals, deities, zodiac, moon phases, days and times, runes, tarot, elements, numbers, chakras, colours and more. All I would say though is, yes, this is fantastic resource, but I think it's a bit dry to use on its own. You do still need to learn things separately, but this helps to bring it together. And also, if you've forgotten something, you can remind yourself, now which gemstone can I use to correspond with that. But of course, you can also find your own correspondences. I don't think everything has to be written in a book to be true. You know, you have your own personal meanings, and I think that's can sometimes be where even more magic happens, where you find that metaphor. I mean, as a poet, when you're writing, when you find a metaphor, you don't go and look in a book and go, oh, what can I describe the flapping wings of a bird? Oh, you know, it's like the fluttering of my heart is like a small sparrow. You don't look that up. You find something that perhaps makes sense to you and you write it down, and that's what gives you your own poetic voice. And I think the same is true of tarot. Anyway, that's my little, I've gone off on a tangent again, haven't I? We need to move on to the next decan. So now we are in the 6 of coins or pentacles, and I wanted to mention that the corresponding court card for the first 2 decans is often considered to be the King of Pentacles, which again, I guess, represents how much in the material realm we are. But of course, it's still Venus, so material might make you think materialistic, or you value, you know, that above everything else. But Venus is in terms of how the material realm can manifest love. And I think here we're showing the compassion of receiving, and with the moon, it's perhaps the mystery of how the universe does sometimes provide, perhaps through the compassion of others, or we're not quite sure how it works, but things come through, especially if we focus our attention. And so we've got the 6 coins. I have to say this is one of my least favourite depictions in the Rider-Waite, because he looks particularly snooty, because to me that's not quite charity. But anyway, I digress. It's one card that I feel is not quite right. It's, yeah, I don't know, but it's about giving and receiving. In fact, I might just move those out of the way because it's distracting me, that card, and it's not quite the energy I want. So let us move to the energy that I do want, and it is about intuition. And for that, I have chosen, because we're in the realm of the moon, I have chosen, I think it's pronounced Arenda, it's one of the Bouchette designs. I haven't worked with this at all, but it's a very beautiful deck. I did pay more for it than I normally pay for decks. I'm a bit of a cheap date when it comes to most of my decks, and this one I think was a bit expensive, also because of the postage and so forth that you have to pay. But I've chosen this one because it relies a lot on using one's intuition. You have some quite basic little cards here to explain what the Fool is and the Magician and so forth. Lovers, duality, relationships, choice, passion, sharing, decisions. But there's no real explanation as to why the imagery that is used has been used. So to take a look at that, I might just bring the camera down a little bit. So yeah, I've got these beautiful card backs, and it's this quite rose petal finish card, but I am a bit concerned about how well it's going to be shuffling. I just do overhand shuffle, and it's quite small, but I'll give it a go after I've gone through the cards, and maybe pick a little card as well, because I haven't done deck interviews at all with this. So we've got the Magician. Oh, look at that, beautiful. High Priestess, Empress. I mean, we all know meanings of these for ourselves, but how these images quite correspond, it requires a little bit more thinking about. got the dogs all looking at a deer there, which you normally think of dogs as chasing deer, but she's kind of got them mesmerized. And she's got a mirror, which is often related to intuition and the subconscious, and she's got a swan in her hair or her antlers. So is that about, yeah, intuition, the Chariot. That's a beautiful Chariot card. Swans again. Bear, the strong bear. Justice. Oh, I almost think, is that more like a bird almost having to balance out its attentions? The little one that doesn't get any food in the nest. Death. One foot in the water and one foot and head in the sky there, isn't it? Slightly different take. The devil, is he real or in your mind? Brilliant Tower card. I often think when a tree goes, it's like a whole society collapsing, and that's often what we have the Tower, isn't it? The head of the society, almost social collapse, even almost rather than even personal collapse. Just feel like we're in a bit of a potential tower situation, or it's promising to. It's sort of a bit wobbly, isn't it? Lightning hasn't quite struck. Sun. That Judgment, the ghostly rabbit. It reminds me of Watership Down a little bit, that does. The World. On top of the world. We have these mysterious, talking about mystery and intuition, there's something very mysterious about these. It's like a sort of alien life form has come and it's communicating. And they're sort of planets, but they also remind me of some sort of sci-fi film where you've got these kind of spheres moving through an alien landscape. And are they alive? Are they, you know, are they technology or are they beings? That kind of vibe going on again here. Bubbles. Vessels conveying what? 6 here. Look at that 7 of Cups. Illusion, mystery, dreaming, isn't it? Dream world. This is very dreamy. It's surreal and dreamlike. And I think that's very appropriate for the moon. And it's very feminine, very Venus-y as well. I feel anyway. It may sound a bit sexist, but in what we traditionally think of as goddessy. So yeah, Arenda is beautiful. Shall we see if I can, in fact, shuffle it? It would help if I don't have all the explanation cards. Okay. Like I said, I don't do... It's not too bad. Maybe. I do like cards to stick out. Just gonna... They are clumping together, it has to be said. Yeah, clumping together quite badly. Right, but let's ask the first question that I usually ask a deck. Even though I haven't shuffled... Oh, I think that has to be it. My first question, it was in my head, is what is your root essence? And it has told me its root essence is 2 of Wands. So I will do the rest of that deck interview separately, but yeah, there's root essence 2 of Wands, as well as the fact we have the moon as our decan ruler, and it's being exalted is, of course, that we have Beltane. And this is a pottery dish that I made about a year ago, almost a year ago exactly, to commemorate Beltane and the May Queen. And we have all these beautiful blossoms that are heralded in by the Queen of the May, the white blossoms on the trees. They come a little bit earlier these days, I think, than they used to in Ireland. Beltane I've got written on the back there, and there's my little sigil. But of course, these blossoms, these thorn fruit blossoms, are a type of rose. They are from the rose family, and I have got the Rose Tarot by Nigel Jackson, and that's, yeah, roses corresponding to not only Taurus but specifically Venus. And roses do have an element of mystery, don't they, to them. They're sort of a gift that we almost don't deserve, as something they say about dogs. I often feel that way about roses. So beautiful. And there she is there. Rose, open the eye of the heart with the divine wisdom of the ages. And of course, yeah, we have roses and the heart chakra, which is very much a Taurian thing. This lovely deck is unique in the elegance of its line work combined with the richness of its iconography. Author and artist Nigel Jackson developed the Rose Tarot based on his unparalleled expertise in medieval hermeticism, symbolism and alchemy. Well suited for oracular readings, cartomancy and meditation, this powerful deck blends elements that can be found in the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot and the Marseille Tarot, and it will be a welcome addition to any collection. And then we've got the Secrets of the Rose Tarot book. So I haven't done anything with this deck at all, so it's completely new to me. A little cat there instead of the usual, and these beautiful roses. Magus looks a bit female. Lovely high priestess. There she is with her rose in her rose garden, and I wonder if it's a bit like the secret rose, which I also have, where all the different colours of roses correspond to different things. In fact, I'm going to look up the Empress now. Let's have a look. Divinatory meaning, abundance, fruitfulness. So yeah, those are quite fecundity, artistic creativity, beauty, pleasure, opulence, harmony, luxury and sensuality. The Empress is the green-clad Dame Alchemia, seated in opulence within a hermetic garden with curiously cultivated beds and a circular hedged labyrinth behind her. Verdant green is the hermetic colour of life, and it's also the colour of Venus and regeneration at the highest level. The Empress personifies the soul of the world, Anima Mundi. And we said that it's in Earth sign, didn't we? Venus in Earth, very earthy sign, embodying fecund potential, the principle of radical humidity. Oh, my tummy's rumbling. The principle of radical humidity and telluric potencies. I'm not quite sure what he means by that. I'll have to sort of look into that. The lunar mercurial womb of receptive contractivity, the matrix of all things. She is like the green-robed muse Thalia, whom Thomas Vaughan encountered and who opens the secrets of the inner realm to the alchemist. She slumbers like the sleeping Venus in the subterranean vaults of the hermetic castle, which is to say she represents the deeply rooted powers and potentials inherent within the primal matter. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to read the rest of it because it would take too long, but there's a lot there, and I'm very excited to be using this deck. I think I'm going to be recognising some things, but also learning a lot of things, and I like the art style as well. That's quite a traditional imagery for the chariot, although we do also have the Holy Spirit descending as the dove there. Kind of quite Christian imagery, or biblical. the tetramorph with its wings, justice, natural light, the hermit. Oh, this is exciting. Look at all these, look at all the planets there. And the wheel. Yeah, so strength at 11 in this deck, which I like. Death. Oh, look at that devil. Wow. He's got the gut belly, the lower. He's even got some thoughts in his knees. He's so low. I think it's our base thoughts, isn't it? Our gut. We often think our gut as being intuition, but actually it's also like considered like your, you know, your animal thoughts over your higher, perhaps your higher faculties. Oh, beautiful moon. So intuition here, but perhaps there's a bit more of a guidebook going on. So whereas the Arenda, I'm going to have to rely a lot on intuition. This one is perhaps more Venus and a little bit less moon. I just want to get into the pentacles, because of course that's what it's all about. The coins. So we're on the 6 of coins. He's got sowing. He's offering things to the earth. And the assistance is therefore nature, isn't it? It's nature helping us to survive and offering bountifulness, which of course, you know, people used to pray to the gods almost more than other people need, you know, the charity of others. It was kind of up to what rain was going to come or what sun was going to come, how things were going to be pollinated. Got some interesting characters here to investigate those. Well, I'm very excited about that deck, and I think I will do an interview with this, or just do one card pull to see what energy it wants to express to you. So let's just see, what energy would you like to tell people that you have? Oh, that's good, isn't it? The moon. The moon, the exalted moon, and the decan ruler of the 6 of Pentacles, or the 6 of Coins. So that card, that one is very exciting. And I have one more for this decan, and that is, this is the most indulgent, expensive deck of my collection. It's also one that if you haven't got it, it will be difficult to get and expensive. And it is the Nemeth Tarot. There were only, I think, 300 made. Beautifully signed there. I keep a little key in with it. And this I bought, just fell in. It was a love at first sight type deck, very appropriate to a Venus type astrological ruling, and it is just utterly beautiful. It doesn't come with a guidebook, so in the moon again I'm going to have to use a lot of intuition, but I have scrolled the Instagram account of the artist to find any meanings that she wrote down about the mythology behind some of these cards. It's all to do with Galicia, and there's a walk, a pilgrim's walks along there, and stories that are very related in many ways to other Celtic areas, particularly Ireland, characters like Brendan the Navigator. And I just saw this deck and absolutely loved the artwork. I love the colours of it. and I just really wanted it, and I managed to find a copy that someone was selling. So I treated to myself to it. At one point, I was a bit panicked it was never going to show up because it had taken a very, very long time. It was coming from the States, so again, expensive. And I think this is one of the only, in fact, the only deck I bought that was expensive enough that I had to pay some customs duty on it. But I have managed to find some little bits and bobs. I'm not going to do a whole reading of, a whole walkthrough, because that will take forever in this video. But I started writing, I'm not sure why I did this tiny writing about some of the cards. What do we have? So this was the Hanged Man, and in my shorthand of what the story was about of this one is about a passing Galician accused of a crime and sentenced to hang, who tells the judge that the cock will crow his innocence. And I believe the cock is, in some versions, is already dead and being eaten by the judge. And lo and behold, as the rope goes round his neck, it does crow. So there's that little story. What else do we have here? Oh, death, a holy company led by a mortal who will die as you will if you see them. And it's associated with St. John's Eve. That's rather spooky. Let's hope it doesn't count if you just see them in a card. Not the camera bit there. And look, it's like the name has been written almost under there, but it's been removed. Santa Campana. So we have lots of this mythology. I think that's the Tower of Hercules, a Roman lighthouse from which I believe saw the coast of Ireland. This is almost like a figure in the clouds, isn't it? The star. Talking about how the stars affect us in astrology. Look at that beautiful. There's a lot of stuff about the passage of the sun. And he's just more beautiful cards here. This is meant to be a Celtic love knot on this clover, which clover is obviously quite associated with the four-leaf clover and so forth. And there's talk about these muras, these spirits that hide things, treasures under the earth, and these also are sort of portals. These strange rock formations. They remind me a lot of the rock formations you get in Devon, actually, the tors there. That's just a beautiful card. And for the Six of Cups, it's funny because that just reminds me, when I was younger, we didn't really go on holiday until I was about 8 years old, and then my dad got a car, and we were able to go on this holiday and rent cottages and so forth. And I remember one of the first places we went was Wales, and we did this beautiful walk through this lush forest landscape, the likes of which I'd never seen before. It did just feel mystical and magical, and that's reminding me of that. Six of Cups. That's a very Six of Cups card for me, and it's perhaps also on a greater level. It's like a memory of a landscape, a way of living that we've sort of lost as well, isn't it? We all kind of are longing for that earth. We all romanticise nature now because we have so little of it, unfortunately, when it used to be all around us. And I think she's one of these, possibly one of these Mura type figures. Let me see if I wrote that one down. Then they have these treasures that they kind of look after. Did I write that one? Don't think I did. Oh, and this is about some looking after the wells. Ah, yes, the Eight of Cups. Alonda da Flor de Agua. The legend of the flower water from enchanted Galicia. It began as a winter solstice ritual, but became a San Juan, St. John ritual, an ancient rite that unites Celtic Europe, starting in pagan times. The first girl who catches a flower from the water of the spring, so presumably there's flowers falling down or something, places a branch, and this shows that the next girl must now move on to the next spring until all springs or fountains have branches in them. That's rather lovely little story. How we used to, you know, we treated water sources as sacred. You think about Thames water these days and the like, it's all a bit shame. I love that. Doorways. A doorway as a card. That's rather amazing, isn't it? The 9 of Cups. And the 10 of Cups. Now, I believe there's meant to be some destination on this Camino, this pilgrim's way, where the sun, you reach where the sun is setting, and it's a sort of metaphor for life in a way. But I'm getting really into this deck. There's a lot of feeling like it's a portal. It sort of takes you into its world. And it's very magical. It's just stunning, beautiful. I love the colour scheme. It's natural, but also mystical at the same time. I want to spend time with it now, and I've got to move on. I think this is a legend of some men of some area that are meant to have killed this big serpent monster, and then they have a festival every year for it. I would do a big walkthrough, but I feel doing that for a deck that's not widely available is a bit mean. Anyway, she's the queen of Lupo, wolves, and then I think in the 12th, she's a pagan, and then in the 12th century, these monks come and somehow, I think they harness the bulls, or they get some animal, I think it's bulls, which is very appropriate for Taurus, under control, and she sees them doing it with just the power of the Holy Spirit, and she converts to Christianity. At least that's the story. And there's a lot, like in my Arthurian decks, there's a lot in this which is about the bridging between the pagan world and the Christian world. And another of the characters is this woman who was the first to write in the Galician language. When was it? Ages ago. And she wrote this book that's all about her pilgrimages, and she travels around the world to the Holy Land, and it's a great source now for what she saw. I want to say 4th century, but maybe I'm making that up. Oh no, it was. I found her here. She's let's just backtrack to the High Priestess. I should be more organised in my thoughts here, sorry guys. So the Papessa, she is a Roman noblewoman who made a pilgrimage to the Holy Land in 381. And she's also the first writer from the Iberian Peninsula. So there she is. I actually bought her book in translation. I'm a bit obsessed with doing research when I get into things. So I've got that too. I am rather fascinated with the way that Christianity and paganism intertwine, because we're often shown it as though it's a fight, but I think there was a little bit more syncretism in the same way that the Romans came and they were an empire. So, you know, they were colonizers to a certain extent, but they syncretized other ideas, and they kind of joined together. And you get Arthurian myths, and you get these Galician type stories, and there's that moment of meeting, and perhaps there is conflict, but there's also the holy water becomes part of Christianity, just as there was holy wells for pagans, or divine deity wells. And I think that's something we should be considering now, and not you know, not all this fighting each other over different beliefs, not all raking over the pasts, over who killed whom and how many Catholics were killed by this side, or how many pagans were killed by the other side, or which pagans killed which other pagans, you know. It's good to remember history, but I also think that we need to be seeing our commonality, and that, you know, everybody ultimately is looking for the same sort of peace, the same sort of things for their family, same sort of understanding. Beautiful. Anyway, so that's my third deck for when we have the moon in Taurus. So for my next decan, we have, of course, Saturn as the decan ruler. Let's find a little Saturn. Bit of amethyst there. I picked a rather dark one. Got a bit chipped, but got some beautiful lines in it, that one. See if we can see. And Saturn is all about boundaries, and also the arrow of time, which moves in one direction, and that we humans have to be patient for, because we live in the temporal world. So what's interesting now is that with Saturn, we've got the influence of time and restriction and boundaries being considered. And that is very much about patience and time, isn't it? And then we also have, for our court card correspondence, we no longer have the King of Pentacles. We now have the Knight of Swords. So we've got that cutting energy, and a bit more focus on the head as well as the heart. And so appropriate to the need for patience and study and allowing time to teach us, I'm going to be taking on the Thoth deck, or the Tote deck, as I prefer to say. Now, I was a bit disappointed when I bought this deck. I am such a ding-dong. I ordered it, and I thought I was going to get those great big lovely cards that people sometimes show. I knew it wasn't going to be green. I knew I hadn't got the green one. But then you open the box, and just to warn you, if anyone's as stupid as me, that really, I don't understand why they've got this great big box, because it comes in a box, and the only thing that you get that's not in the box there's no guidebook in this great big thing. It's just this rather naff fold out layout thing, which does anyone use those? I mean, they don't really work, do they? They look so tatty and cheap. Yeah, ancient Celtic 10 card spread. I know, maybe some people use them, but to me it's probably, maybe they used them back in the 1980s or something, but I don't understand why they're still making them. Anyway, won't be negative. But so I got this rather little card set, and I was like, oh, he's a bit small, because I want to be looking at all the details. I'll be getting the magnifying glass out. And it comes with the usual gubbins. There's a bit of a picture of old Alistair there, not looking as old as he got. And there's Dame Frida Harris, the artist. But yeah, you get the little white book there. But I have, of course, got some other books, which I'll show you what I've got. And the other thing about this deck is that he changed some of the card names, which I already know that. And on the High Priestess, one of his pedantic things, and I got this deck as a shadow deck, because he does rather annoy me with his whole making a whole religion around himself. And I believe there's even like dates that are kind of festivals within the religion that are his birthday or something, and you think, oh please, ego on a stick. But he changed, and why do I make that my shadow deck? Because it's also obviously, if I ever want things to revolve around me, I of course look at other people being egotistical, but you know, we all have that, don't we? And then he wanted to change the priestess to the he did change the High Priestess to the priestess, because he wanted to do away with hierarchy, apparently. But you know, if you're doing away with hierarchy, you don't really even have a priestess, do you? Everyone's equal, a bit like the Quakers who all sit in the meeting house and no one is the ruler, or no one's the clergy. You know, they sit round and people speak equally. So you know, whether she's high or whether she's not high, she's still above in terms of her hierarchy, isn't she? And I know this already because she's Gimel on the Hebrew letters, and there's a camel there. There's me being an ego, isn't it? Look what I know. Yeah, this was bought as a shadow deck, and and this is a Vahana, the swan. This is Sarasvati. I assume that's meant to be riffing on Sarasvati as well as the usual Isis, because Sarasvati has a swan as her Vahana or vehicle. Emperor Hierophant. Interesting. His Hierophant one's got the elephant, of course, because it sounds a bit like Hierophant. But he's got the 4 gospel writers there, or signs of the zodiac, whichever you prefer to say, rather than just on the world card. And I'm sure there's people that are real experts on this. But I've, of course, got the Book of Thoth, or Thoth, Aleister Crowley. That's the classic. Then as a very simple, I've got some keywords for the Crowley, which I saw someone recommend. That's a bit more straightforward, perhaps. And then I've also got this one that I've seen has been very recommended. Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot. Lon Milo Duquette, new edition. So I've got plenty to be going on. So I originally ordered this deck as a shadow deck, but when I started looking through it, I thought, I'm not sure it's entirely shadowy, because to me, a shadow deck is one that provokes, it triggers you, doesn't it? And it triggers particularly the animus, which for women is our sort of male side, and which comes where we get the word animosity too. And I think for me, Crowley does trigger that, because I don't know, I haven't really studied him. And why haven't I? Because in my mind, he's someone who was very arrogant and show-offy. And that's probably a side of myself that I like to keep, or at least not acknowledge, because I think I have voices that say you shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't be top, you shouldn't show off anything that you know. And that definitely comes from the ways we're told to be by important voices, isn't it? That we shouldn't be proud of ourselves because we've not really got anything to be proud of, and people say, oh, we should be so proud of her. Oh no, but terrible. Anyway, where all that comes from, we can delve into elsewhere. But I found that maybe this wasn't all that shadowy. So I'm not sure whether it's going to work like that or not, because perhaps as I get to know it better, although maybe that's integrating the shadow, perhaps as I get to know it better, I will be more fond of it and understand some of the reasons, and not be, oh, you've just tried to make a whole religion around yourself and make your birthday into a day when everyone has got to kind of treat you like the prophets and etc, which that just... Plus, it was the whole antagonism towards the Golden Dawn people. He did have a bit of a way of putting other people down with his acerbic wit, and I mean, he was quite funny the way he'd talk about people like Mathis and say he had too much of the Mars about him, and laugh. But it's a sort of acerbic wit of that. Again, I find I can do that myself. I can be quite be quite cruel with my humour to, maybe it's a self-defence mechanism, but you sort of put other people down, and that's all very shadowy. But I'm obviously not got too much animosity to that deck, because something just arrived for me in the post today from MPC, and it's this lovely package. Rather excitingly, the lovely Nova Mundi made her greenie available, and I couldn't decide which size to get, so I rather indulgently got both, because I thought whichever one I get, I'm going to wish I'd got the other one. If I get the big one, I wish I got the smaller one with the cute little special book, special box, the Nova Greenie Tarot on it. But because I'd been rather disappointed by the size of these cards and thinking, oh, it's a bit small and I want the bigger one, I thought I'm going to get the bigger one as well. So I'm not going to open them both right now. I'm going to just get my special opener and eagerly open this. And I think I've said in one of my other videos, but this greenie was referred to as the green cross toad at one point when it came out. I mean, it said it's a mistake in the printing, but I think it's got relevance to the emerald tablet. I think that may be one of the reasons for the greenness, or why people like it so much. The emerald tablet being the thing that's supposed to have contained some of the secret hermetic body of knowledge that is thought to have been passed down. Oh, look. Isn't that amazing? Look at that. Oh, I'm so pleased to have this, Nova, thank you. Oh, it's beautiful. Wow. And see, now this is where it becomes an object of love, and Venus is here. Venus has definitely entered the building, and we've got Saturn with Venus. In fact, I'm going to get my little green stones out again. And we are reminded of Venus in her beautiful greenness again. Look, and here's Dionysus again. Dionysus in the fall with the grapes. And the Holy Spirit descending, perhaps. Oh, it's so exciting. I'm really looking forward to learning all about this deck. Utterly beautiful. Of course, there is an element of Orientalism with all the Egypt references, but kind of borrowed that from an earlier age. But, you know, there's something about Aleister Crowley that is a bit of a wind-up. So that is why I thought of it as my shadow deck, which is very Saturn as well. Saturn in Venus, the hidden, the unseen, the subconscious that controls us, that makes us irritated by other people, when in fact what we're recognizing is part of ourselves that we perhaps need to integrate, and not be so angry about it showing up in other people. And if this didn't quite fit the shadow mark, there was one deck that I think really does, and I've also got that for this decan, because it is a Thoth-based deck, and it is the Gill Tarot. And where I think perhaps the original is going to not quite be my shadow, this one very much does seem to be. Oh, there's the card backs. At least from the outset, it feels that way. And I did show commitment by getting the guidebook as well, which ended up costing me more than the deck itself, which is still very affordable. This says $12. Well, I had to get it in very good condition, but it was more than the deck to buy. And why is this my shadow? Well, again, I think it's because I can't help but feeling it's like a sort of autobiographical deck, a deck that's all about me, and that annoys me when I feel that people are being like that. And why? Because people do need to, you know, it's not everything that is all about ourselves is narcissism, but I definitely have an issue with getting annoyed when I feel people are very self-focused. But not all self-focus is bad. And sometimes, you know, even tarot, I'm like, oh, it's so self-indulgent to be pulling all these cards and worrying about yourself, and like therapy that's all about you. And can't you just kind of think about something else, not just all about you, you know? So this relationship with the self is one I need to look at. The difference between what is selfish and what is a necessary kind of self-care and self-recognition, and giving yourself credit without thinking, oh, that's just being a bit big-headed, isn't it? Because I definitely have that feeling of, oh, well, what makes you think that you're such an expert on that? And I sometimes get triggered by that in other people, and thinking, wow, you know, what makes them think they know enough to tell everybody else what to think? And and it's very much something that stopped me from putting myself forward before. I think, well, you don't know enough. You're not an expert. There's someone better than you. And yeah, this deck feels that she's put herself in it, but in a way that sometimes, yeah, I need to consider that that's okay. And there's also another thing which is annoys me and myself, which is the pedant, which I feel, and also the contrariness, where I feel that sometimes she's just changed correspondences. That although this is meant to be Thoth-based, she's then called it a different name. You know, like he'll have the the 8 of Swords as despair, for example, and hers will be the 9 of Swords. And you think, well, why have you done that? So this is shadow, and I'm working it alongside the other Thoth because I want to compare some of the differences. I think it will help me to remember both of them. And I've written down, oops, ooh, dropping boxes there, not quite a cascade, but I have actually made space in my notebook for the names of things so that I can notice where there are differences. Let's see if I can find what was the one that irritates me the most. Oh, here. I didn't put an exclamation. I'm being the pedant, really, aren't I? You know, we talk about shadow. So 9 of Pentacles. She's called it prudence. Let's have a look. I do have to laugh at myself for these. Why should that annoy me? Let's have a look on his 9 of Pentacles. Yes, so his 9 of Pentacles is called failure, but he has the 8 of Pentacles as prudence, and we've got the same colours on the 8 here as she has on her 9. It's like, oh, why? Why are you being pedantic? Why have you changed that? Oh, just to find out, I suppose. So, yeah, this, I think, is my proper shadow deck, possibly at the moment. And with all that shadowiness and studious irritation possibly coming forth, I thought I needed something a little bit more relaxing. And I don't like to forget my RWS. I like to keep it fresh in my mind. And I think when we've got lots of different decks, especially because a lot of mine are different systems, they're not RWS systems, you can start to lose track of, you know, the basics sometimes if you don't keep them in circulation. So this is the beautiful Soya Redux with the astrological symbols in the mandalas in the background. And it's just, this is going to be quite an easy deck to work with. And I think when you've got something easier to work with, that you're more familiar with the symbology, you then also can get a bit deeper with your readings. Whereas I think with all these new decks I've got coming in, although something deeper may throw itself up just intuitively, you are often like going for the guidebooks and spending a little bit of time having to find out who's that character, why have they chosen that character for that card, why have they put those symbols in that card. Whereas this one I'm much more familiar with. I mean, it's something new can throw itself up all the time. You can suddenly spot something or attribute something, but yeah, it's just the beautiful RWS with a little bit of a spin on it. And I have got a few different RWSs now. I mean, actual literal, either Pamela's art or, you know, pretty much exact copies of her art with a bit of a flavour put on top of them. So yeah, this is my final deck for Saturn, and perhaps what the boundary that Saturn is putting on that is saying there's a limit to how much new stuff you can take on. You've got to put a boundary on all that exploration. Fence it in a little bit more. Keep with what you know a bit better and establish that knowledge a bit more. This is a lovely, lovely deck. So I've got 9 tarot decks for the month of Taurus and no oracles. So it's always possible I might sneak something, but I don't actually have that many oracle decks. I think I've got 4. So there's not really one that would work in my mind with this particular month. So that is all of my cards. I'm going to end it there, as Saturn would say. But if you want to look at the card pulls that I do every day in the morning from these decks, you can follow my Instagram account, which is Key Features, and I'll link that in the description to the video as well. It's just a little picture every day and it'll give you an idea of how some of the cards are looking together. Do leave a comment about what you've thought about the decks I've shown, and perhaps give me an idea of any decks that you think are appropriate for Taurus and for the planetary correspondences we've got. And I'd love to hear from you. So thanks very much, and see you again next time. Bye for now, and may the joy of Venus be with you.